Hey everybody, welcome back. So today I thought I would just give you a quick look at a couple of different Winchester Model 94s. One of them is a pre-64 and one of them is a post-64. And I wanted to show you just a little bit of the similarities and differences. Something that you can just take with you as you're out looking, to possibly buy one of these fine rifles. So the top one was manufactured in 1953 and the bottom one was manufactured in 1973. And of course, in 1964, what we're talking about is the fact that Winchester changed their production, basically in an effort to save some money on these things. I guess they were just getting too expensive to build. And the biggest difference, or the biggest change at the time, was the fact that they went from a machined receiver to what we call a sintered metal receiver. And basically, sintering is a process, and I actually had to look it up, where you're taking a metal powder and then pressing it under very high pressure and then heat treating it afterwards. Now, advantages and disadvantages, between machined and the sintered metal process. One thing about machining is that it's solid steel. The advantage with sintered is that the parts are consistent. From piece to piece, the metallurgy is basically the same, and the quality is consistent. Now, one of the disadvantages to the sintering type of process is that it didn't take bluing very well. And I've done just a little bit of research on the bluing, and the company that manufactured the chemicals for the Winchester bluing was a company called Dulite. And from 1940 to 1964, the process was basically called oxy black. And when Winchester changed the metal material, this process no longer worked. The sintered metal doesn't take a regular bluing. It just won't stick. And if you see any of these receivers from after 1964 that are kind of a plum color or kind of a bluish color, you'll know that somebody stripped off the coating and tried to re-blue it with the standard oxy black process, and it just doesn't work. So after 1964, there were a couple of different processes that were used. 64 to 68, it was a Dulite 3-0 process, or a 3-0. In 1968, they went to what's called a black chrome plating. It seems like kind of a mixture of two terminologies, but that's what they were calling it. And then in 1972, beginning with serial number 3,800,000, somewhere in that area, to 1981, Winchester revised the process again. And what they were doing at that point was basically coating the receivers, or plating them with iron. So they iron plated the receivers, and then they went back to the old original oxy black bluing process once the receivers were iron plated. So I guess all that to say that the bluing, or the coatings on post 64 Winchesters, which this one here, is not as thick. So once it wears off or scratches off, it's more difficult to re-blue it. And you don't get kind of this honest wear that you see on the pre-64, where the edges get worn slightly, and it kind of ages very, very gracefully. So, the kind of the worst ones are immediately after 1964, where we've got this chrome plating, or this black chrome plating, that can actually tend to flake off a little bit more. But the ones after 1972, like this one here, this is a 1973. The color is actually fairly similar to the pre-64, because again, it was actually the same bluing process, although it's on there, on a fairly thin layer. So, kind of hard to tell these two apart. In all respects, they're pretty similar firearms. The walnut is pretty good here already by 1973. Late 60s, I've seen some walnut that also looks like it's, I don't know, very thin, if you can say that. Almost looks more like a flaking veneer. But this walnut on this 73 is pretty nice. Some of the metal pieces are a little bit thicker. Like you'll notice that the thickness of the lever here is a little bit fatter than in the pre-64. The loading gate on the pre-64 is machined, and the post-64 is looks like it's stamped. So by 1973, things were pretty much back to normal with these. The hammers are both pretty similar. The followers internally are pretty similar, both machine parts. You notice the sights are all very similar. The banding is similar kind of thickness. Round banding there, round here. The sights are very similar. Another difference you'll notice is in the butt plate, and the pre-64s have this wonderful steel butt plate. Lighting's kind of a little bit off there, but post-64, you're going to get a plastic butt plate like that one. But you know what? Price difference, actually not that much. Probably in the order of a couple $100 difference, but the pre-64s getting harder to find. So much more desirable, a little bit pricier, and if you can find one, grab one. These rifles hold their value very well, continue to go up, and as an investment, if you purchase wisely, you're going to do all right on them. But over time, you're always going to get your money back and more. So just watch your prices, know your years. If it's a post-64, I would suggest to look for something in the 1973 range, and you're going to get a wonderful firearm that actually is it's classic. They shoot well, and you really can't go wrong with this piece of American history. So that's it for today. Just a little bit of a comparison. I wanted to show you these two side by side, give you a little bit of a close up, and tons of information on the internet. There's books written about this stuff, but when I was looking specifically for to get information about post 64s and exactly what they look like and what some of the feature differences were, it was kind of tough. So that's why I thought I would just show you this real quick today. And if you can find a 1973 to 1981, pretty tough to go wrong. Those are still quality firearms that were worth that are worth a look. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time, take it easy.